the ha'aris on the Maimarim, like the parentheses, were written by the Tzemach Tzedek. Why? Yeah. 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 The Tzemach Tzedek took the Maimarim, the transcripts that were written, and he wrote a lot of ha'aris, Ma'ir Mekaymes, ha'aris. And when he published the Likkutei Torah, that's how it was published. Tafresh Ches. Okay. So we began, when was it? Thursday, we began the first class on the Maamar, Ken Yomru Hamoshlim, Boyu Cheshbon, Ki Eish Yatsa Mecheshbon, Lahava Mekirya Sichoin, Achla Armayav Bali Bamas Arnain, where it speaks about the wars between the king Sichoin and the king of Moav, and Sichoin, the king, Sichoin is a name, who was one of the greatest kings in the empire of the Amorim, how he conquers Moav, and Ken Yomru Hamoshlim, the poets say, Boyu Cheshbon, come to Cheshbon. And the Maamar brought what the Gemara says in Baba Basra, that this is all really a parable. It's a parable for life. Ken Yomru Hamoshlim, those who are Moshlim, they rule their Yetzer, say, Boyu Cheshbon, Boyu v'nachshav cheshbono shalaylam. Right? Let's come and calculate and do some reckoning with our world, with the world. And Alter Rebbe began to explain this. He's going to get back to it, of course, later in the Maamar. But the first shiur, we discussed the first part of the Maamar. So please turn to Likkutei Torah Chukas, 128. Yeah, we started the first paragraph. We're middle of this. We're middle of the next page, which is Samach Hey, column 1, 129. Chukas 129, Samach Hey, column 1. We're middle of the page. The line starts Kadma la'olam. So again, Likkutei Torah Chukas 129, in Hebrew Samach Hey, column 1. In the middle of the page, the line starts Kadma la'olam, and we're holding the words of Me'ata Yesh Lahavin, Pirush ve'inyan Lashon Olam Mahu. Today's class is dedicated by your dear friend Reb Tamir and Judy Goodman in loving memory of their fathers, Reb Kalman Chaim ben Reb Avraham and Reb Chaim Zalman ben Reb Avraham. In their loving memory, and La'elu Nishmasam Tehei Nishmasam Tzura B'tzur HaChaim, and may their souls be a continuous source of love and light and inspiration and confidence and empowerment and blessings to you and to your children and to the entire family and all of the families and all of the communities and all of our people. Until the great moment of Hekitzu B'Rananu Sheikh Ne'afar, B'Karav Mamish, Amen, and thank you very, very much. They also dedicated to their daughter, Oriya, on completing her IDF services. She's been serving since October 7th, tirelessly, with tremendous devotion and Mesiras Nephesh. Both her grandfathers would have been so proud of her sacrifice and dedication, and they want to wish her Mazel Tov and only blessings. Amen. Ken Yomru Hamoshlim, and thank you so much. So the Sefer Yetzirah tells us that everything is divided, or everything is connected to Olam, Shana, Nephesh. Olam is space, Shana is time, and Nephesh is consciousness, soul. And the way the Alter Rebbe explained it was that Olam is the world, and the world includes where every single creation. Every single creation is part of Olam, from the tiniest to the largest, from the inorganic, inanimate to the organic, the animal kingdom to the human race, to the world of produce and plants, and to the inanimate. everything on our planet, and everything on all other planets, and everything in all other worlds, physical and spiritual. It's all olam. And the diversity is endless. As he said, everybody's guf is made differently. It's a different chemistry. And it's therefore capable of channeling different frequencies of awareness and of energy. You can't compare the brain of a squirrel to the brain of a chimpanzee, the brain of a chimpanzee to the brain of a human being. You can't compare the chemistry of what the stars are made up of or the planets are made up of to what mountains are made up of, even though there's similarities. And that's olam. And then you have Nephesh. Nephesh is the divine energy that animates it, called Melik Kalalman. It fills it, it animates it, it vivifies it, and it is really one with it. That is what it really is. It's manifesting that energy through its kalim, through its vessels. That's Nephesh, that's the soul, the spirit, the consciousness that vibrates and cruises through everybody and everything. And just like olam has endless levels, because everything in the olam is unique, right? Even twins don't have an identical DNA. Everything has its unique imprint, even though there's the common denominators, there's the similarities, because ultimately it's all made from one source. So there's an achdus that pervades, but nonetheless, the tzir, the form is different. So olam has endless levels. And as you said, you can't compare the guf of the body of the rock, right? The physical container of the rock, so to speak, and the physical container of the human soul, of the human being. The physical container of the plant, of a blade of grass, to the physical container of the lion, which is an animal with consciousness, with emotion, or the elephant. You can't. And yet even the blade of grass, we say, Ein lecha esav milmata, she'ein loi mazel milmayla, hamaka b'ayvaymer legdal. There's no grass that doesn't have also a spiritual force. So just like olam is so diverse, Nephesh is diverse, meaning the chiyus, the life of godliness, is tailor-made and custom, like to fit the hand inside the glove. It has to be perfect for this glove. If the hand is too big, it won't be able to fit in this glove. If the hand is too small, again, the glove won't be able to carry this hand. So this is true, right? That the chiyus, the Nephesh, is custom-made and tailor-made with precision to the olam. And then he added, the last point was shana, time. And this was the critical point, that this life force is renewed every single moment. Hamachadesh betuvoi b'chol yom tamid maseh bereishis, as we say in davening twice, in the beginning of the first blessing before Kriya Shema, at the end of the first blessing, right in the beginning, Hamei la'aretz ubetuvei mechadesh b'chol yom tamid maseh bereishis, which he quoted here. And then at the end of the same blessing, we say it again. HaMechadesh B'tu, just a little bit different, but the same concept. HaMechadesh B'tuva B'chol Yom Tamid Maaseh B'neshus. And he explained that the concept of this renewal has to do with Ratzei V'Shoif. That since essentially you're dealing with Ein Sof, with infinity. So there is a paradoxical motion in every single aspect of the energy that animates the world. One is Ratzei, which is the yearning to go back to its source and be subsumed, just complete infinity. And yet Shuv, which is the instinct to return and animate that which is in a way that is finite so that it should be able to exist. And that's why the whole system of life is based on these paradoxes. As he gave the example of the human breathing, the neshima, the exhaling and the inhaling, and also the circulatory system of the heart, contracting and expanding, which is all a reflection of the chayis of the whole world, which is Ratzei V'Shoif. And as we explained at length in the previous year, very much at length, and as a result of that, time is created. Because what essentially is time? If the chayis of Hashem would just be communicated to the world and stay like that, that's what it would be, just energy. So it would be what it is. But because the chayis is defined by a paradox, there's a flow, and then it returns, and then it flows again and returns, which is why it's constantly renewed every moment. And that is essential to life. Because if any of the two wouldn't happen, the whole system would fall apart, because it's all about communicating the infinite to the finite. So therefore, in the chayis itself, there is a paradox, and that's what Ratzei V'Shoif is. On one hand, it feels this is not my place. I want to go back to the source. And yet this is my place because this is my mission. That paradox that the Chayis itself is conflicted in its own identity. I'm here, but I'm not here, but I'm here, but I'm not here, but I'm here, and I'm here. And in the here, it's right away taken over by the feeling I'm not here, I'm not supposed to be here. And then, of course, I'm supposed to be here. That is what time looks like. That is time. The way it evolves and comes down in our world, it's the tangible time that we relate to, which is the second is, it's not. It is, of course it is. No, it's not. That is Ratzei V'Shoiv in the most tangible incarnation. Tangible, I mean, it's not so tangible, but relative to what Zman is in a higher plane, this is how it comes out. You can't hold on to it, you can't control it at all. You can only be part of it. You can't control it, you can't hijack it, you can't contain it, you can only surrender to it and become part of it. That's the only way to deal with it. And if not, it's a true tyrant and a dictator. As we explained at length in the previous class. And with this ends my summation. Okay? Ratzei V'Shoiv. and every summation needs a shoiv to be able to finish it. And we continue. And if you didn't understand anything I said, don't worry, it's hard stuff. But you can listen to the previous class because we discussed it relatively ba'arichas. So the Alter Rebbe now continues. This is a very, very Yesodis de Maamar, Olam, Shana, Nephesh. Shana is the shidduch between Olam and Nephesh. It's the Shadchan. The matchmaker between Nephesh and Olam is Shana. Because Shana is a product of Ratzei V'Shoiv. So that's the bridge between Nephesh, which is pure infinity, and Olam, which is all about parameters and boundaries and finiteness. And you need a Shadchan. That Shadchan is Shana. That's what time is. Yeah. An interface, yeah. Time is the embodiment of the paradox. That's what it is. Right? It's here and it's not here. It's here and it destroys itself. It's here and it delegitimizes itself. At that very moment. You can't even hold on to it for what we would call a split second. It doesn't exist. You say, okay, so now is now? Not anymore. The moment you hold on to it, you're not holding on to anything. Right? It's very, very elusive. That's exactly the point. It's elusive. It's not containable. Yeah, always a rhythm. That is what it is. It's a rhythm. And that is the flow of life. That is the chiyus of life. It is a rhythm. And if you try to boom, I have it, you have anything but it. Right. And as we explained, that's why life is always now. It's being part of that rhythm. Not being stuck in anything else. The ego has a hard time with that. The ego, as we explained, wants to control. It wants to take you out of the rhythm because it wants to have some form of control. It wants to stay small and safe, but at least safe and in control. So this is these are the three dimensions of Olam, Shana, and Nephesh. So Alter Rebbe now continues. Now, after we gave this Hagdama, which is the critical Hagdama of Olam, Shana, Nephesh, now it's time to explain what is the word and the meaning of the word Olam. So usually we translate it as world. And he explained it here. It's not just the whole world. It's every part of the world is Olam. Every pebble is Olam. Every grain of sand, every flake of snow, every droplet of water is Olam. Yeah, every cell is Olam. Every neuron, every atom, it's all Olam. It all makes up the Olam. It all makes up the universe. It all makes up the world. And then there's everything on this planet. And then there's other planets. And then there's higher worlds. And it's all part of Olam. That's what he explained. And that's why there's so many different levels. And it's all based on, as he put it, his dachachos hachomer v'hakli, he said earlier, right? The refinement of the material, of the fabric from which the Olam is made. He said you can't compare the body of a human being to the body of a blade of grass, as I said earlier. It's all part of Olam, but it's a different Olam. And therefore it channels a different aspect of Nephesh, a different aspect of Ein Sof, of divinity. So he says, but now let's understand the word Olam, the word. Dehine, Mahu, what is it? Dehine, Achiyus Eliki. שבכל עולם המסלבש בהילך יוסי הנקרא נפש, הוא כדמיון החיוס של הנשמה בגוף שלו, שמסתתרסי בגוף, והגוף מלבישו מלימה. Because the one aspect you have to understand here is that the key word is olam. And here the Alter Rebbe says the real etymology, the shirish, the root of the word olam is helam, concealment. Olam from the word helam, which in Hebrew is lahalim. Right? What is lahalim? Vashem helim mimeni. Helam is helam davar. You have helam davar. What do you mean helam davar? In Halach and Masechet Shabbos, you forget something. It's concealed from you. V'nelam mimenu, it says in Chumash. V'nelam, it's concealed. It's hidden information. It's not conspicuous. So he says, this divine energy in every world, which is mislabish by, it's manifested and it's integrated in it to give it life. And we call that life force Nephesh. It's like the soul in its own body. What do we see by the soul in the body? The body is alive from the soul every single moment, but the soul is not visible. The soul is mistateres. The guf is a real lavush. A real lavush means it truly dresses it up and completely conceals it. In other words, the entire relationship we have with our soul is only via the mechanism of the body. Most people don't have a tangible relationship with their soul. What does my soul look like? I don't know. My body, I can hopefully have a relationship with your body. This is not to be detached. But if you have a relationship with your body, that's the vista to your soul. That's where we begin. And in many ways, that's where we end also. It's all through the guf. You can know your neshama, but it's all through the guf. Right? What your heart is experiencing, what your legs are experiencing, what your chest is experiencing, what your head is experiencing. So it's like a neshama with its own guf. The same is true, the ultimate nefesh, the cosmic nefesh with the cosmic guf. Because the human being is a mashal, it's a metaphor. Our guf is like the cosmic guf. It's a tiny branch from the cosmic body, a guf gadol. And then you have your neshama is like one frequency of light from the cosmic nefesh of the entire olam. Mipsari echzelika. V'adei kamayal derech mashal. Metaphorically, it's like HaMelech sheyoshev b'chadre, the king who sits in his room, in his chamber, in his sanctuary, in his palace. Sagur v'tzafon. Sagur means quarantined, right? Locked in, sagur. And tzafon, concealed. Shehechaloi v'chadre ma'alimoi bilti higalas niglas l'shamadam. Everybody knows that there's a melech. But especially these days when the Alter Rebbe said this Maamar, Tovkov Samach Zayin, I think, 1807, this Maamar. To see the Melech was a unique privilege. It's not a simple thing. You know he's there, but the room contains him, and the room conceals him. Bilti Galus Nilshamadam, he's not exposed to anybody. Yeah. So the room, on one hand, is his presence is there, but it's presence in a way that if you're outside of the walls of that room, you have no access to that presence, not in a visible way. There may be a knowledge, but not a visible relationship, a visceral relationship. This is all a metaphor. The light and the chiyus of divinity of Ein Sof is closed. It's enclosed and it's concealed b'toich kol almin, inside all of the world. Sheha'olam is v'hayichalis heinheim amastidim aleida lekila bilti yigalis niglas. All the worlds and all the heichalas, the chambers, just like we said by the king, conceal and eclipse the light of the divine that it shouldn't be revealed. Just like the neshama in the guv, it's concealed, it's not visible, it's not conspicuous. He sees, but is not seeing. Ein Sham, look over there in Gemara Brachas. That's why they're really called Olamas. Every Olam has a dual function. On one hand, it manifests the light, because that's what it is. It's a reflection, it's a manifestation of the light. But precisely in that moment, it also conceals the light. And of course, the two are dependent on each other, because if it wouldn't conceal the the light, it wouldn't be able to be Olam. Olam is defined by whatever it's defined. By the brain of a human being, by the body of a human being, or by any other creature. In order for it to be defined that way, the Nephesh, which is the Ein Sof, is limiting itself in order to become the engine and the chemistry and the creative force which gives life and existence and creation and functionality to this being with all of its aspects. The entire chemistry, physical chemistry, is essentially a manifestation of the spiritual chemistry. If the spiritual chemistry would be just revealed as pure infinity, as pure limitless, as pure bli gvul, as pure Ein Sof, then the Olam would not be the Olam that it is. So therefore, the walls of the chamber conceal the king. The very product of the Olam conceals the chiyus that is really its entire metzius, its entire existence. And we have that in the person. Every moment the body is being vivified by the neshama, by the consciousness, by the inner consciousness, but we don't have a direct experience of that pure consciousness. It's always through the guf, through the helam of the guf. However, how much is their concealment? That depends. That depends on what olam it is. Just like we said before. There's so many different levels of olam ad infinitum, and because of that, there's so many different ways in Nephesh, and because of that, there's so many different levels in Shana, in time. The same is true about this point. The Helam, it depends. The depth of it, the magnitude of the concealment, that's lefiyerech. That's always commensurate with the level of the olam that you're talking about, from the higher level, from the highest to the lowest. As explained before, what do we mean by a higher world? What does it mean higher? That the helam of olam is not so intense. The helam is less dense. It's more transparent. The capacity. Opacity. Yeah. The see-throughness is much more powerful. Yeah. And the lower it gets, what does it mean lower? Lower doesn't mean physically lower, on top of the mountain. Lower means it's more opaque, more eclipsed, more helam. No, there's our world, there's per earth, there's higher planets, and then there's spiritual worlds. Well, there's what in Kabbalah you have Olam Hasiya, Olam Hayetzira, Olam Habriya, Olam Hatzilus, etc. So he's saying the higher a world is, what does it mean? That Olam is less, the concealment is less.
Same virtue, you could say that the Olam is less, core is less, should I say less? It's more fusion.
More fusion, yeah.
So it's not only less Olam, also you could call it less the other side of it. If it's less liquidy, then it's not necessarily, well, it's not necessarily higher. It's more fusion.
More fusion, yeah, exactly. Yeah. As the madregas, as the steps continue to descend more and more, from one cause, from one antecedent to its effect, and then to another antecedent, because one ilah becomes an alul, and then the alul becomes an ilah for the next lowest level, and then that alul becomes an ilah. So it's always going down and down. So what in one world is an alul, in a lower world that becomes an ilah. Right? In the higher world, there was a child, like it says in Pirkei Avos, do you want to be a tail of the lions or a leader of the foxes? Right? Do you want to be the lowest level of the higher world, or do you want to be the highest level of the lower world? It's an interesting question. You want to be a zon of la'arayis or roish l'shawalim? Huh? You want to be a big fish in a small pond, or you want to be a tiny invisible fish in a big pond? Which one do you want to be? You don't have to answer. So the alul in the higher world, it's an alul, it's a result, it's a child. In the next world, that becomes the ilah. Yeah, he becomes the Rabban Shel Kol Bnei Agayla, and so it goes. He did some madreg. That's what he means. Me ilah la alul. You start off as an olol and then you become an ilah, etc., etc. So in that whole process, at siyum olam ha'asiyah, until the end of the world of asiyah, the world of action, kamay ba'olam haza hashafel shalanu, as in our humble world, ha'hester va'helam betachlis ha'chayshach, the concealment reaches its full crescendo. The darkness reaches its full intensity. Ad, where do you see it? At shenidim hashamayim va'aretz bebchinas geshem nifred mamish bilti bchinas bittul. To the point that heaven and earth become visible as geshem nifred mamish. That's the insanity of this world. It's geshem nifred mamish. It's almost like Alter Rebbe is describing how hard it is for him to believe this, that there could be such a metzias. There's geshem nifred mamish. Geshem means it's physical, nifred means it's separate, and mamish means in its babis nifred, like it's not a joke. All the philosophies in the world don't take away that that's the visceral experience of our world. The heaven and earth reach a place of olam, of helam, in the lowest space, that they experience themselves, and we experience them because we're part of this world, as completely physical realities, really separate from any source, without bittul, without alignment, without oneness. The moment you go higher than this material universe, the pasuk says, we say in davening, with tzva shamayim l'cha mishtachava. Once you hit tzva shamayim, which means a higher space, there's already a consciousness of mishtachava, of prostrating themselves, of continuous. There's a continuous relationship, there's a gratitude, there's a surrender. And when we say shamayim, it's not just spiritual. Even in this world itself, you could see different gradations. The higher planets, you could sense more bittul. All of the galgalim, the planets, they have there's such a life force over there. It's so intense. Even if you talk, for example, the speed of things, that it has symptoms, it has more symptoms of bittul. Once you hit our space, below the moon, our elements is shem chumrim avim. Here there's a thickness, there's a density in the material. Like, for example, the physical earth, the physical soil, the physical dust. It just is.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's mishtach, but the fact that it's not in one state.
Right. Motion, movement. The Gemara says that everything goes klapi ma'ariv, right? East to west, because Shchin is b'ma'ariv, so it's a form of ishtachava. The point is that there is a dynamic over there that represents the bittul. Yeah. That's why he brings this inyan, mishtach v'klape ma'ariv. That's in Gemara Baba Basra, Daf Chafei, I think. That it's mishtach v'shchina b'ma'ariv, so it's mishtach v'klape ma'ariv. It's like the sun is almost, I'm looking for God. I'm just looking for God.
Well, the faster it goes,
the speed represents, it's the physical, it's a physical manifestation of a tremendous passion, a yearning, a passion, to the point of uncontrollable.
The sun is moving with 200 kilometers per second.
Yeah.
Per second.
Yeah.
It's like unperceivable.
Yeah. 180 light travels, light itself.
So just the sun
Right,
itself,
yeah.
in the
200 kilometers per second.
per second, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, obviously, planets go around them together. We are too.
Yeah, we are too.
We are even more because we have our own spin. You know,
So you're saying the sun travels 200 kilometers per second. Wow, yeah.
a little bit more. I don't remember.
Yeah. So the Alter Rebbe asks in a Maamar, another Maamar, what's the secret? What's vu leifter? Vu leifter. Relax. And he says that there's a spiritual consciousness of such inspiration. It can't relax. It's like you see somebody hears an unbelievably piece of news, whether negative or positive, and they're overwhelmed. Relax. I can't relax. We tell the sun to relax, right? Because we were like, what are you doing? Relax. But that's what he's saying, that the moment you go higher, if you open up a little more of the Chaimer, you see, no, there's celebrity of Freilich. How could you relax? You know what's going on? Do you understand what's going on there? Because they feel more what's going on. They can't relax. Of course. That's why that's the whole point of the Maamar. You see it in science. The deeper you go into the Chaimer, the more insanity, the more chaos in a good way, the more speed, right? You go to the atomic level. You're looking at a tail, like you said, you look at Alpha, what do you see? Nothing. I'm here, I'm always here, I'll always be. I don't budge for anybody. That's what Alpha tells you. I don't get excited by everything. You can do whatever you want, yeah? Organized chaos, exactly. Tremendous eslavos. No, so that's the point, that on the level of Chaimer, the more the Chitzonius, that's what he means. Olam HaTachton means, Tachton and Elyon here don't mean in space. It could also be in space, but it doesn't mean that necessarily. He means in terms of reflecting the internal energy. Like he says, the Melech in the room. If somebody's in the room, or there's at least a window, there's an opening to what's inside. There's a denseness. It's like it looks like it's paralyzed. Like he says, Geshem Nifrit Mamish. It looks like it's separate, broken, lonely, paralyzed, and just pure physicality. When the truth is, there's no such a thing. It's all consciousness. And it's alive. And you see it also with a person. The more the body reflects and manifests the soul, the more dynamic, the more creativity, the more energy. And that's why the deeper you go into the Chaimer, the deeper you go into the material, the more you see movement. And not just movement, but speed in ways that are incomprehensible. Right? Everything is made up of atoms, everything. The atoms are the building blocks of the world. Everything is built from atoms. So when we look at something, we say it's daimim, tzemeach, chaim, medaber. That very division is a very external division. What makes daimim daimim? Daimim means silent, dead. Because that's what it looks like. Afar is called daimim. Trees are called tzemeach. Animals are called chai. Humans are called medaber. But that's from an outer perspective. It's important to know the difference between a mountain and an animal, yeah. But behind it all, if you go deeper to the Chaimer, if you go to Tzva HaShamayim, if you go to the deeper core of the earth, anything, even a grain of sand, the atoms are not dead. Constant motion, and with a speed that's incomprehensible. The nucleus, the atom has a nucleus, a center, right? And then you have the circle, so to speak, around that center. And the speed of it is incredible. And that speed is essential to the life force. If not, it falls apart. So what is that? That's a form of Tzva Shamayim, L'cha Mishtachavim. In the planets, you see it with your eyes. On here, we don't see it with our eyes. In fact, with Alter Rebbe, you need a microscope.
That's why it's less oil. That's why they're superposition at that
Huh?
level. That's why they're superposition.
Of course.
There's less oil.
And therefore, the deeper you go, the superposition. Because defining it in one space, that's a product of pirud, that's a product of separateness. Infinity is not here or there. So the more the Chaimer is reflecting what it really is, the less it's defined by one space.
Can't be held on to.
Yeah. And the same is true with time. Time also changes with speed. Everything changes. Because the moment you go up a madrega, the moment you go up a level, space changes and time changes. And everything else changes. Because Nephesh is more. Remember, the whole point is that Olam and Nephesh and Shana are all reflecting each other. So the level of Olam is based on what Nephesh, it's transporting, it's transmitting, it's revealing, which is based on the Helam, the concealment. Less congested, less dense, yeah.
It's actually interesting because, I mean, we travel in like 20 kilometers per hour, right, as the Earth, and then the Sun 200 kilometers per second, 20 kilometers per second,
Yeah.
200 kilometers per second. The galaxy 600 kilometers per second. The galaxy moves like really fast, so we're just chasing each other per second.
How fast does the galaxy go?
About 600 kilometers per second.
Per second. 600 kilometers per second.
So
That's like 350 miles per second.
yeah, something like
Huh? We're almost in California.
that. No,
Now we're past California already. Yeah.
California, forget it.
Whoever's in California, I don't know if they're up yet, but yeah, good morning. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, when it says in Chassidus Alashon that in Ruchni it says Mokim nicht mafsik. Yeah. Mokim is nicht mafsik. In Ruchni is. What does that mean? Really? It's not mafsik? You're in Australia, I'm here. Of course it's mafsik. The answer is, of course it's mafsik. When you're in a place of chaymer, of course it's mafsik. Yeah. There's a wall between you and me. It's a mechitza. Of course it's mafsik. The moment you go out of that place of chaymer, even in physical, that's what he's smoking. When he says, even in this world, the moment you go to a place that's deeper than chaymer, the makam is not mafsik, the zman is not mafsik, the time and the space. And if you go deeper, then there's b'chlal no time and space. Right. Yeah, that's what it means. Beyond time, beyond space. Yeah.
The space, I mean, it's so ridiculous for our mind to understand. The sun makes a full circle around the galaxy. I think it's like in 200 million years. You imagine the space of our galaxy.
Wow.
And it runs 200
Right.
kilometers per second.
Right.
But it still takes like 200 million
Right.
years to get this.
So that's what's so astounding. Like, why is the sun running so fast? Like, usually we run because there's like a destination. You need to get there by 6 o'clock, so you run and run and run and run and run. And it doesn't stop. So there's obviously some fire in the belly, some fire in the belly of the sun burning. It says in Medrash that, Yeshua stopped the sun. He said, Shemesh begivoin doim. It says in Seder that it was Gimel Tammuz. On the 3rd of Tammuz, Yeshua stopped the sun. He said, Shemesh begiven doim v'yoreich be'emek hayalon. So the Medrash says, how did he stop the sun? He commanded it to stop saying shira. He commanded the Galgalim to stop saying shira. Yeah, in other words, it's all the shit, it's all a song. It's a dance. The sun is dancing for the Rebbeinu Shalom. And you could learn from it what it means to dance without self-consciousness. Like we spoke about David. David mefazes a mecharker b'chalois, right? And his wife felt insulted and denigrated, and she rebuked him. How do you embarrass yourself this way? And David HaMelech said, I would do it even more. I would do it even more. This is not called embarrassing. She said, she's like, you're one of the maids, you're one of the pustyaks, you're one of the bums in the street who has no job. This is not normal. This is not how, the Feinschmeckers behave. It's not aristocracy. And David HaMelech says, no, that's the real aristocracy. So the Shemesh, one thing it doesn't have an ego, it doesn't have self-conscious, it doesn't need a shidduch, it doesn't have to be an upright standing member in the community, it doesn't have to get its girls into seminary. It's already in the seminary. It's in God's seminary. So Mela, it's of course it's running. There's even a lashon chassidus. When you know what the Shemesh is experiencing, then you would ask why it's not running even faster. That's the Pella. And it's that question I heard from the Rebbe. Gimel Tammuz Tovshin Mem Hey at the Fabrengen. Because Gimel Tammuz is the day that Yeshua stopped the sun. So he spoke a whole Indian in that. So he said, if you would know with experience what the Shemesh is experiencing, the Pella is as a leifnit. He gave us the Pella is as a leifnit schneller. That's the Pella. As a leifnit schneller, faster.
The relationship with Rebbe Yosef.
The Pashtos, I mean. So this is the Inyan, that the deeper you go into the Chaimer, right, the movement is so much more powerful and even faster, because even the faster represents the fact that it can't contain itself. Remember, the physical and the spiritual reflect each other. The more Ratzoi there is spiritually, the more Ratzoi there's going to be physically. When a person is running for their life, they're going to run much faster. Yeah. When you're just running to get a lollipop, you're going to run slower. The deeper the emotion, the deeper this physical speed too. Everything reflects each other. The adrenaline, the blood that's pumping, the muscle, the heart responds. The guf responds to the nephesh. The more meaning, the faster you go. So all of the gufei harakia, everything that exists in the higher sphere, in our own world, the chaimer is more transparent. So they're like, how could you be relaxed? What do you think? We live on earth? We don't live on earth. We live in heaven. We're not couch potatoes. They're so aware of the energy, of the divine energy, and they're so overwhelmed and excited by it that they're running. And the same is true in a person. The moment there's a puncture in the helm of the guf, and the guf is more in touch with the soul, the person's energy is not just quadrupled, but it's magnified infinitely. All depression, all anxiety, all paralysis, all deadness is the more the guf is hiding the nephesh. Misalignment, yeah. And when the guf is not mailam on the nephesh anymore, there's a natural flow of light and therefore tremendous excitement and joy. And that's really what joy is. Joy is not a created emotion. We learned in Sais Tassis. It's really creating an opening. When there's a flow, that the chaimer is not just pure, plain dead chaimer. Chaimer on its own is dead. It's supposed to be dead. You're feeling dead? Yeah, no question. It's actually appropriate feeling. It's dead. Chaimer is dead. The only thing that makes chaimer not dead is elikus. Nephesh, spirit, consciousness. It is dead. So of course. So if I'm only feeling my chaimer, yeah, I'm dead.
Sometimes it's opposite. The more person is secular, the more it appears like it's super alive. But it could be dead inside.
Well, there's always a question, if I'm busy living or I'm busy dying, right? You could be busy dying. You understand the difference?
Like a fish, like a frying fish.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah. I told you once this. I'm not going to say this story now, but when you take out a fish from the water, it looks very, very lebedik. In the water, the fish is very, very calm and can even seem lifeless. Take out the goldfish from your tank in your dining room, and suddenly you'll see it's doing hakafas. It's tanzt and springt. But come back 30 seconds later and yizgadal, v'yizkadash. So not everyone who's leaping and jumping, it's not always a sign of life. Sometimes it's the opposite. People who have very, very exciting lives, every night they're somewhere else, I'm not sure that they're busy living. Sometimes they're busy dying. I run here, I run there, run. It's distractions. It looks on the outside, I'm very, very busy. I'm very busy. Such a long night. But that's not their life necessarily. His life is in presence. It's the quality. There's a person who could be in the same place for many, many years, but they're alive. Like the fish. The fish is very happy in the water. I'm alive. I don't need action. You don't have to take me anywhere. I don't have to go to dinners, banquets, show. I'm good right here. Keep me in the water. Invisibility is perfect for me. It's connected to its source. That's what it is. It's how connected I am to my source. That's not about how many places I visit, how many people I speak to, how many interesting projects I'm involved in, how many things I know, how many windows are open at the same time on my phone and computer. That's how it's connected with. Right? Somebody told me that there was a teenage girl and she took her life. And the mother was at the funeral. So the mother, a little maybe naive or innocent, she's like, I don't understand. Like very few people came. She's like, on Facebook, she has so many friends. Where are they all? On Facebook, she has so many friends. Where are all these people? Right, so there's friends and there's friends. So b'negela in yanenu, in every situation, the more the chaimer is connected and aligned with the source and less concealing of it, the more there's a flow of life. There's a flow of creativity. And when a person feels the dulling of life, they need to be able to stop and breathe and tune into the fact that there's a disalignment over there, that the body is shutting down. It's it's somehow afraid or somehow doesn't have the tools right now to open itself up. It's like closing down. It's like shutting down, and it's creating a bigger wall on a mechitza, and therefore you're feeling this. So you don't have to take it so seriously. It's just that there's a disalignment, there's a blockage. And that blockage is part of our life. It's part of the whole world. This is what this world is. That's what Alter Rebbe is saying. V'zeu shekasav la'asid lavei. That's why it says about the future when Mashiach comes, Yeshaya Siman on Aleph, Ki shamayim kashanim lachil va'aretz kebegetivla ki yichlu b'chines chumrius shalem. The expression is that heaven will go up like smoke and earth will decompose like a garment. What's the point? It's not a doomsday dire warning. It's basically yichlu b'chines chumrius shalem. The decomposition of the chumrius, of the brute and crass and gross material and fabric that eclipses the Nephesh, that's what's gonna rot away, that's what's gonna decompose. V'yischadish ur b'riyah chadasha b'chinas shamayim b'eretz chadasha. There will be renewed a new light, a new creation, a new heaven and earth. It says in Yeshaya, "Kasha shamayim hachadoshim va'aretz hachadosha asher ani oisedavka shelo yiyu mastirim u'malimim al or v'chiyus hanimshach mein seif baruch hu sheyizgal lekvoid Hashem bilti hester v'helim k'meshakasav ki ayin ba'ayin yiru chuli v'nigla kvoid Hashem v'ro chabas yachtav k'fi Hashem diber." This is what Geula is described. Here you have it. It's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. What does it mean, a new heaven and a new earth? So Alter Rebbe says, doesn't it mean that the world will physically be destroyed? Apocalypse, just destruction and purgatory. It means consciousness. There'll be a new heaven and new earth, Ashani Oisa, that I make. So he says, that is the new heaven and new earth. Everybody touches the pasuk. I'm going to make a new heaven and a new earth. He says, no, the new heaven and the new earth is going to be one that you'll see that I made it. That's the pshat. Ashani Oisa, that is the new heaven and the new earth. In other words, right now, the heaven and the earth that we know conceal the oir. They conceal the chiyus. That's why it's called oilam from the word helam. Of course, there's many levels of oilam, but from the highest to the lowest, it's all oilam. The question is how deep, how powerful, how potent the concealment is. La'asid love it, what happens? It's a new heaven and a new earth. It's not opaque, it's transparent. Not only translucent, but transparent. You know the difference? You know the difference between translucent and transparent? So one you could see through, but one is not just you could see through, it's complete. There's no opaqueness, there's no blockage. Yeah. And that's pshat, v'nigla k'vayid Hashem, ayin ba'ayin yiru, we're going to see eye to eye. What does it mean eye to eye? You know, when you see how we see eye to eye means the way you see it is how I see it. Ayin ba'ayin means God's eye and my eye are going to meet. We're living in the same world. Wow. That's when a relationship begins, right? When you see eye to eye, we're living in the same world. Because two people could live in the same house, sit at the same table, sit at the same couch, but they're not living in the same world. That's how it is, very often.
United and untied. United and untied.
Right. Oh, united, untied. Yeah. Very nice. So therefore, it's going to be v'nigla k'vayid Hashem. V'hinei Bais. V'hinei kol hanal. B'chines oilam shana nefesh. All this that we spoke about oilam, shana nefesh. World, which is the container. It's time, which is ratzei v'shoiv. Nefesh, which is divine consciousness. All this, sha'nefesh mislabeshes b'chol oilam. Sha'nefesh mislabeshes b'chines oilam l'chol oilam l'fi erkoi. That the nefesh is enclosed in every world. And every world according to its erech, according to its price, meaning according to its measurement and chemistry, as explained. And no two oilams are the same, because everyone is a different space of how refined the keli is and how deep the concealment is, and therefore what it manifests from the Nephesh. This is what we mean when we say memale kol almin. He fills the worlds. Shepirush memale ubchinas or v'chiyas hamalubish benelim be'almin almin kanal. That is what the word memale means. Memale means it's the light and it's the energy that is enclosed and concealed in the worlds. And the word is venelim, memale kol almin. Almin means worlds and almin means concealments. He fills all the concealments. Why? It's the same thing. For there to be olam, there needs to be concealment. Memale means concealment. Memale means I fill you. I don't fill myself. I'm not expressing myself. I'm filling you. To fill you, there has to be you. I have to be tailor-made. I can't fill you by just expressing myself. Right? Everybody understands that. In any relationship, take a child, a student, you want to express yourself or you want to fill the other person, connect to the other person. That requires tzimtzum. It requires holding back and actually tuning in to their life force, to their frequency. So the word memale means you're filling the keli. For that, you have to be measured according to the keli, according to the vessel, which means you have to be concealed. You have to consider the walls. The king, in our marshal, the king has to remain in the sanctuary with these walls. Yeah, I can't go outside of this. I can't be visible. The reason the Nephesh, our neshama, is concealed is out of respect to the guf. It doesn't want to overload. It doesn't want to overwhelm. It doesn't want you to go into chaos and psychosis. And all breakdowns is essentially too much oir. The oir and the keli are not working with each other. That's why people are struggling the most, usually have the deepest light, not the less light. They have more light. The medical community still needs to catch up because usually what we want to do is we want to shut down their light so they're normal. That's not their healing. Their healing is by giving them the vessels to understand their light. That's a different avodah. It's not simple. I'm not saying it's simple. I'm just saying it's a different approach. The approach that we have today is you're crazy, so shut down your light and become normal like me. Just be like me. Slow things down. But that's not the issue. The issue is not that there's no oil, there's too much oil. And the keli doesn't know how to handle it. So it creates tremendous chaos. That's why oilam is mamala kalam. That's what's so important to understand. It's not this two separate. He fills the world and he fills the concealments. It's the same thing. Oilam is helam. Why is it helam? Because that is the definition of oilam. The definition of oilam is not what God gives, it's what God holds back. The act of creation was an act of self-suspension much more than of self-expression. Right? That's the whole chiddush of tzimtzum. Usually we speak about creativity is expression. You say, you're creative, show me your creative power. Look at this art, look at this architecture, look at this music, look at this literature, whatever field of creativity, right? Look at this athletic display. It's creativity. So when you want to look at God's creativity, you look at the world. He says, no. Actually, what you're seeing is the ability to suspend, to conceal, to hide, much more than reveal. The creativity requires a complete sense of a very profound sense of self-concealment, self-suspension. And when there's too much of it, it's not the keli. So that's the idea of mamala kalam. So mamala kalam means I fill you, and to fill you, there has to be you. I want there to be you. So therefore the oil is measured according to the keli, and therefore it's concealed. As much as it's expressed in it, it's concealed by it in order for it to maintain its identity. And the higher the world, the less it's concealed, the more flow. The lower the world, for the chaimer to be chaimer, for the offer to be offer. We don't want the offer to be the sun, you want offer to be earth. Over there's more helam, there's more concealment. Yeah, that's clear, that's what he's saying. It's for the whole structure, for the structure to be maintained. But now, there's another inyan. So everything, we're talking olam shana nefesh, which so much of Kabbalah is based on. The Alter Rebbe is saying all of it is true, but you have to understand one thing, it's all mamala kalam. It's all mamala kalam. And because it's all mamala kalam, and now I'm giving a little bit commentary here, and because it's all mamala kalam, so you could learn Kabbalah your whole life, and you could nash from Kabbalah, and you could take Kabbalah, and you could play with Kabbalah, or not, I don't mean play in a bad way, chas v'shalom. I mean you could nash from it and this, and you know all the levels of Kabbalah, but it's all Mamalik Kalalman. What says it's all Mamalik Kalalman? Everything, Olam, Shana, Nephesh, you're dealing with Mamalik Kalalman, which is incredible. It's amazing. Mamalik Kalalman, Mamalik Kalalman. It's the whole spectrum of existence as we know it. And as we don't know it, much more than we don't know. Still don't even know an atom. But whatever we touch, we're touching it from the from the perspective, from the experience of a molecule. As opposed to what's going to be the next piece in the Maamar. And just as a little intro to what's going to happen here is, because the Maamar began after he spoke about Ken Yomru Hamoshlim and Amin Yehesh Rabbi 70 years. The Maamar began understanding why the neshama came into the guf. We say you read the Tzarech Aliyah, but he says it doesn't make sense because before the neshama came down, it was in such a lofty space of standing before God. Why does it have to go through such a drastic descent, as he said, Yar deployim, such a stupendous Yerida, to come into a physical chaimer in a very lowly world, when anyway, when the neshama leaves the guf, it's going back to where it was. So it was there. So why leave this bliss and this amazing unity? It can't get any higher. So you leave it just to come back there. So don't take me away. You schlep me out, you tear this soul away from its mother's arms, and then you say, Mutchazich, and then you're going to come back. And if you're a good boy, you're going to go back. Thank you. That's a big question. In other words, if you tell me that the neshama before came down into the guf wasn't in such a good place, I understand. But the neshama was in the best place possible. There's nothing that's better than oneness with God. So why change the equilibrium? Why break up the system? Why, as they say, why ruin something that's working? It's working. It's nice. It's beautiful. That was the question of the Maamar. So Alter Rebbe said, in order to understand this, we have to understand Mamalik Kalalman and Seviv Kalalman. And then he starts off with the whole explanation of Olam Shana Nephesh. That Mamalik Kalalman is the Ur that is grasped in the world, and it comes down with a Seder and a Hadraga and a Shefa, and it's grasped inside the world, meaning it's defined by each world, containing it and owning it. In other words, Mamalik Kalalman is you. That is Mamalik Kalalman. It's really God, but it's you. It's the way divinity becomes you. That's the whole point of it. So yeah, you are Mamalik Kalalman. The real you. The real you is the Nephesh, that's Mechaya, the Olam. That was the whole Arichas, and that's how we start. So you have to understand what he's saying now. As long as you only know about Mamalik Kalalman, you'll never have an answer to the question of why the soul came down. It's a crazy thing. It was in the best place possible. What can you give a person more than complete intimate connection with God? What else do you want? If taka einoid mulvade, right? So what else? What am I going to give you? Cotton candy? What am I going to give you? Rice? I'll give you a building. What am I giving you? Real estate? A nice coat, a nice suit, a nice tie, a expensive. What am I giving you? What are you giving the neshama? You have to have a good reason. A person buys a lottery ticket, he gives up $1, $2, or $10, hoping he's going to get $300 million. It's usually the guy in Montana wins, not the guy in Brooklyn. But okay, a Monsey, but fine. That's part of the world. But I hear you're giving away $1, hoping you're going to get $300 million. That's how life works. You invest in a company $10,000 or $100,000 or $5 million, and you hope you're going to get back $20 million, or at least make back the money. This all makes sense. You're tearing away something precious for you, but there's a psacheshbon. You're not a mistama meshugan. Here, what are you doing? You're taking it away from Ein Sof to give it what? Candies. A cup of coffee. It's nice to have a cup of coffee once you're in the world. A cup of coffee is nice. We're not complaining. But was is the Inyan though? So you say, no, you're going to go back to Gan Eden. I was there. You know that famous, very cute parable about this, Maisa. And it is this multimillionaire here from America, and he decides he needs vacation. right? So he's getting rid of his phone for 3 weeks, and he goes to some remote island in India. You know the Maisa, yeah? Huh? Yeah, and there's a guy over there on a boat fishing all day, and he gives him rides back and forth. And then he says, I'll make a fish for you. And it's the best fish he ever tasted in his life. And he's sitting there by sunset, and enjoying the fish at the water. It's like, wow, this is life, And it's amazing. And he's there, and he's overwhelmed by the fish. And he meets the guy the last day, and he says, I have an amazing idea for you. This fish can go crazy. This can go viral. There's no reason you're making, $5 a day, $5 miserable dollars a day, and living in his hut and here at the water. And he says, what can I do? And he explains to him a system of how he has to hire people and delegate and catch more fish, and then buy a kitchen, and then buy chefs, and then you have to label it, then transport it and commercial it, but you need freezers, a whole infrastructure. But you know what? I'll invest with you. And it's going to be a multi-million dollar business, because fish like this, nobody has. So the guy looks at him, he never heard these ices, and he said, what happens afterwards? He says, afterwards you make millions of dollars. He said, what happens afterwards? He says, with millions of dollars, you could do whatever you want. He says, for example, you can go on vacation for 3 weeks, not worry about anybody and anything, and sit at the water for as long as you want. He says, I do that. I do that with my $5, right? Huh? Yeah. We make a joke, but how true is it about so many aspects of people's lives? Huh? Right. I get it. So it's all about, I chose it because I have $20 million in the bank. And I chose this guy, never has to do it. He likes it. But how do you compare it to me? I'm overwhelmed and stressed, but I choose it. And he just has it. The truth is, the question is much greater than the answer. Because so much of life is just fitting in to models and expectations created completely by others, and everybody's just trying to catch up. As somebody once said, we create institutions to facilitate our dreams, and then we become prisoners to those institutions created by our dreams. Initially, the institutions were dreamed. They were reflections of dreams, but then the institution becomes an avodah zarah, and now you just got to fit in. And it's important when we spoke about cheshbon hanefesh, this is really what cheshbon hanefesh means. Cheshbon hanefesh means how much of my life is responding to pressures and expectations created by others who themselves are responding to pressures created by others. Right? It's like somebody once said, in my mother's house, we only ate leftovers. We're still looking for the original meal. What's the original meal? What's it all for? It's not such an easy answer, because people are married, they have children, right? It's nice to go to India to a lake and sit there l'olam vad. I mean, it sounds romantic, but it's also not. It's also sometimes another chalom shechol ma'achedim alachedim that's completely divorced from who the person is. It's a very internal space of energetic consciousness. How did I get into all of this? So you tell the neshama, go to the world, make millions and millions and millions of dollars. Zol zayin millions of dollars beruchnis. And Neshama says, what do I have? You'll come back. I'm here, thank you. There's something off about it. No, now you'll come back with more receipts, with more toys. It had already everything. In other words, the premise is, if it's one with God before, Chai Hashem Hashamat Telefonov, you're not going to get better than that. It's was willst du. So you have to sich oismutchen. Kol hadrachim b'cheskas sakana. And then you also tell them, by the way, if you mess up, you're going to Gehenna. You're not coming back so fast. Really? Don't give me your honey and don't give me your bite. Don't give me your I'm happy, the nectar is very nice in Gan Eden before. I want you to understand this question that comes up not in every Maamar, but in probably many of the Maamarim. It's a Heitzkasha. Why? It's the fundamental question, because it goes back to square one. What is all of existence about? If you don't answer this question, you can't be alive. What is it all? I need to know what's happening. I don't mean know with my physical brain, but experience. What's the nekuda? Yeah. Huh?
Life is a reflection to expectations and projections from others versus expectation and projections from God.
Of course.
What's the
There's a tremendous disparity. I could live my entire life based on projections of others, expectations of others, and I don't even once pause. Or maybe I do, but maybe I don't know what to do about it.
God also has expectations from us.
Right, but I don't have to tell you that religion and God are not always connected. You should know that by now. At least if you come to this class. They're not always connected, unfortunately. Religion can be a trap like any other trap. And sometimes a very big one, because it sounds religious.
Because we are actually trying to fit into religious expectations.
Yeah, religious expectations and projections can be as big a trap as any others, but sometimes a bigger one because they speak in the name of God. Yeah, so it could be very hard. So we come back now, but even in the most beautiful and idealistic scenario, you're coming back to where you were. Thank you. Maybe you're a few miles ahead of the game, okay? So the whole Maamar started with this. So now when he goes in Siv Beis and he says, everything we spoke about here is Mamala Kalam. But now there's something else. And the whole Sefer Yetzirah, Olam Shana Nephesh, is all talking Mamala Kalam. Takim Mitzad, the world of Mamala Kalam, and you don't have a good answer for this. The only way to have a real answer for this is by stepping away from Mamala Kalam. So what Alter Rebbe is now saying here in this Maamar is that a person could learn their entire life. Pnimi Satayra, we're talking Pnimi Satayra, even Keteris HaKabbalah. But essentially they're touching Mamala Kalam. And important to emphasize, not in a judgmental way, but to understand that the whole sugya of Olam Shana Nephesh, even on its highest levels, you're talking Olam, the highest Olam. The word Olam is Helam, is concealment. Which is what Mamala Kalam is, because that's what makes it Mamali. Mamali means I fill you, and to fill you, you need to be you, and I need to make sure that you're you. And if you're not going to be you, it's not Mamali. I'm not filling you, I'm overwhelming you, I'm obliterating you. Which fine, but it's not you. Mamali means it's about you, not about me. That's what the word Mamali means. Mamali means I fill you, meaning it's about your capacity. It's integrated. That's what we always say, Pnimi, it's integrated. Integration means it suits who you are. That means it's defined by who you are. If it's defined, it's concealed. That's what it means. Defined equals concealment. If it's defined, it's concealed. It's working within the parameters of a Helam in order for it to be able to become the engine of this particular chemistry, even the highest spiritual chemistry, and certainly the lowest the lowest chemistry, as he said, physical earth, where it's a geshem nifrid mamish. The divine energy has to go through such crazy, insane, infinite filters that whatever it's vivifying looks at you and says, there's no God. I was, I am, I will be, I'm here for myself, and there's nothing else. There's no part of anything greater. And that's also God. Because that offer, that grain of sand, is also Nephesh. It's also Mamala Kalam. It's also Olam. It's all part of that. But the Olam here is in a way that it's completely concealed. Right? When a person is emotionally depressed, as we said, there's a disalignment between the guf and the nefesh. That guf that is depressed and experiencing, that's also the neshama. Because every feeling is in neshama. But what it's getting from the neshama is just, I'm worthless. Life is nothing. That's what it's getting. It's also a frequency. It's a very low frequency, but it's a frequency. Depression is an experience. It's not a fun experience, but it's an experience. It's the soul experience. It's the body experiencing something. It's just the lowest frequency. Together with guilt and shame and the lower frequencies. They're called the gravitational frequencies, the gravity that pulls them down. The higher frequencies, love, surrender, faith, trust, there's less gravity there. But you have to go into a spaceship. You have to get out of the gravity doesn't pull down so much, so it's not so easy. The frequency of guilt, shame, depression, sadness, hate, jealousy, negative competition, all that, those are much easier they're available everywhere. It's like the Eitz Hadas, it's available. It's like termites, it's available everywhere. It's parasites, they're fungi, it's available. The higher frequencies are not so available. You have to go high, you have to climb trees, it's not so simple. Because these are all pulled down, so wherever you are, you can chap on. Oh, I'm jealous, I hate you, I'm anxious, I'm angry. These are all, but they're all frequencies. They're all Mamalik Alaman. They're just very, very, it's so concealed. The energy is concealed to the point that there's no energy, so to speak. The energy is expressed in the fact that I have no energy. I'm not interested. I'm lazy. I'm dumb. I'm depressed. It's a very low frequency of energy, but it's an energy. It's not an energy you want to choose to live in, but it's certainly an energy. Yeah.
So it's a tragedy of Bolshevik life when he first discovers something touches something that was never expressed before.
Right.
And suddenly he gets sucked into where everybody expects him to have space like this like that, this like this. So and then eventually he loses what he discovered.
Yeah. That's why every Baal Tshuva, it's not only, I don't know if I ever said this, but it's probably true. It's not only from people who need to become Bali Tshuva. Bali Tshuva also have to become Bali Tshuva.
Eventually.
Bali Tshuva also have to become Bali Tshuva in a good way. The fact that from people have to become Bali Tshuva, we know that. But today, Bali Tshuva also have to be Bali Tshuva. It takes a lot of courage to do Tshuva. Tshuva means to return. To return to what? To return to the space, pre-expectations and pre-projections. Pre-expectations and pre-projections. That's the movement of Tshuva. And it doesn't mean necessarily to move tomorrow to India and run away from the whole world, and rent a bike or buy a bike and go to New Zealand and bike for 6 months and tell all your friends that you discovered your soul and you're done. I mean, maybe for some people it means that, I don't know. But that may not help at all. It's just another distraction. Right, it's about the self. It's not where I am. Sometimes location is important, of course, but it's really who I am, what's happening inside. The fish, it could be anywhere in the water, but just keep me in the water. You take me out, you take me to an interesting place, it could be as deathly as anything else. So once we explained that the whole Torah HaKabbalah could be about Mamalik Alalmin, and the person never leaves Mamalik Alalmin, it's extremely important. Because there's a lot of people, Kabbalah, there's people into Kabbalah. A lot of Kabbalah. This one, that one. Okay. Sometimes it's this way, that way. More clarity, less clarity. But that's what he's saying, that the whole Sefer Yitzina, Olam Shana Nephesh, it's all Emes Lamita, but it's Mamalik Alalmin. But now it's important to go from Mamalik Alalmin to the next stage, the next Inyan he's going to talk about. From here, you're also going to come back to the first question. What happens to the soul? Why would the soul want to and agree, and why would God want it to leave a lofty space where it really can't get any better? It's not like it's missing. It's not missing anything. Just to go away and ultimately to come back. And mitzad the framework of Mamalik Alalmin, you don't have an answer to that. When I say an answer, I don't mean a mathematical, intellectual answer. I mean you have no response to it. And tguva, there's no reaction to it. There's no real response to it. But once you can go out of the whole system that Kabbalah articulated so beautifully, which the Alter Rebbe puts into the genre, into the spectrum of Mamalik Alalmin, a new reality opens up. And the reality that opens up, you don't see in Kabbalah so much. I mean, everything is in Kabbalah because it's part of Torah, so everything is there. But emphasized, we're talking here emphasized. And that's the element of the physicality, where suddenly the physical world, which is the most dark place that we have just lambasted and denigrated, that there's nothing here, you don't see anything, that suddenly becomes the purpose for which the soul was ready to go through this crazy rupture just to get to this place. In the framework of a Melik Halalmin, that does not make sense. All you could say is, on the contrary, be sensitive to the fact that on earth you feel nothing. And know that, and that itself is powerful. And therefore you strive to heaven. And therefore Kabbalah ultimately is, you're going for another madrega, another sphere, a higher world, a higher yichud, a higher, and it's not a small thing. It's not a small thing to cultivate consciousness and expansive consciousness. But the ultimate answer to the soul leaving, just to come back, which seems senseless and even cruel and so challenging and difficult, only comes from a completely different framework, which is not really a framework. That's going to be the point. And that, it wants to go to this place where the Nephesh is concealed more than anywhere else, where the Olam reaches the ultimate Helam, like you said, the Choshech, like we see in our world, and not even in the world of the planets, which is also a place of darkness. The world of the planets is not Olam HaYitzid, it's not Abri, it's not Atzil, it's a physical world. And with a spaceship today, you can even get pretty far. But when we're talking about this world, the soul doesn't go to the world of the planets, it goes in here. Here, where the invisibility of the spiritual consciousness reaches its ultimate peak and crescendo. And that becomes the tachlis, which then the soul says, this is what I need. And it's in that process that it's extricated from the world of Melik Halalmin. And this is where the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, this is the Gilui of Chassidus. So we have here this Maamar, it's really in every Maamar, but if you contextualize it, it opens up a vista to the entire revelation of Pnimiyus HaTorah. And you see, those who learn a lot of Kabbalah, if they're sensitive, are learning Melik Halalmin. Melik Halalmin is pretty infinite. I don't. When we say Melik Halalmin, you're talking about from the highest to the lowest. Meideish Kol Dagan at Sof Kol Dagan. The quantum leap of Chassidus is not Melik Halalmin. It speaks a lot about Melik Halalmin. Of course it does. And only there, and therefore it has an emphasis on the physical world that Kabbalah you won't have. On the contrary. In Kabbalah, you denigrate the physical world. Not real Kabbalah, you don't denigrate the physical world. Fakert, the physical world is part of the Olam HaRuchni. But the emphasis and the ability to be able to appreciate the darkness of this world, not just as a hachana, and not just as a challenge, and not just as an obstacle, and not just as a barrier, but actually as a tachlis, in a way deeper than all of the highest worlds, and not just in a way, but truly, that can only come from something that's outside of Melik Halalmin. Because mitzad Melik Halalmin, it doesn't work that way. You have to call a spade a spade. Darkness is darkness. And you're not going to compare Olam Asiyah to Olam Atzilus. And the best you could say is, go to Olam Asiyah, but come back to Atzilus. And then the question was, I was in Atzilus. I was fishing. I had a beautiful life. I don't need to go to Harvard. Become an anti-Semite, make millions of dollars. I could do tshuva and then do meditation for 10 hours in India. I'm doing it. I'm good. Lahavdil. But if you learn that in Olam HaAsiyah there's something that Atzilus doesn't have, of course I want to go to Olam HaAsiyah. That you don't have so much in Kabbalah. Again, you have everything really in Kabbalah because it's Torah, so everything is connected. When it's Torah's emes, everything is everywhere. But I'm saying in an emphasized, structured fashion. So the Baal Shem Tov already teaches this. The Alter Rebbe really systemized it, so to speak. Because the Baal Shem Tov was more like, he threw out the sparks, he threw the atomic energy. But the Alter Rebbe systemized it. Chachma, Bina, Das, the system of it. So that it could be, and that itself he wanted, so it should be able to be integrated. This is a Hagdama. I'm not explaining anything he said yet. Like, what's this thing outside of a Melik Halalmin? Right? And what have to do with this world? And where suddenly does it all make sense? But this is the introduction to understand when you're learning this Maamar, it's not some another idea. Oh, this is Melik Halalmin, and now let's go weiter. It's appreciated. There's a very serious evolution happening here in terms of machshavas hayadus, in terms of Yiddishkeit and in terms of Pnimiyus HaTorah, and in terms, of course, of how it's integrated in a person's life. And as a result of that, a person understands something that's very, very deep. And that is, and this is what he brings out in this Maamar at the end of Sif Bais, at the end of Sif Bais, in a very, very emotionally dramatic way, that ultimately such a big focus on Yiddishkeit and a beautiful focus, especially for people who learn Kabbalah, on Hislavos, Dveikus, experience, ecstasy, spirituality. And that's what people strive for. A lot of people that come here strive for this. You want a little love, you want a little awe. Yeah, you want to feel something. I don't want to be bogged down by life. I want to be uplifted by life. How do I do that? I don't feel anything. I'm dead. My religion is dead. My Yiddishkeit is dead. My Torah is lifeless. My mitzvahs are lifeless. I'm not even interested. Some people have the days I'm not in the mood. I don't do it. I'm only doing it for my kids, maybe. Whatever it is. And it catches up to you. It's called a midlife crisis. And people respond in different ways. Some people start going to the Kiddush club on Shabbos. So they get drunk Shabbos afternoon. And some people respond in healthier ways. Kol chad from shur delay, right? Some people buy more toys to distract themselves. And some people say maybe it's time to look for a different type of toy. But all of this is assuming that the tachlis is finding some very deep spiritual connection. And it's very true, and it is a major tachlis. And it's critical. But ultimately, that doesn't answer the question. Let's say, you can have a shia. Let's say this shia could go for 10 hours every day. It could, by the way. You're saying halavai. He's like, oh no, this is long enough. Like, my wife asked me, who are the people that have no job that sit with you for 2 hours? Who are these people, and why don't they get a job? What am I supposed to answer? You're the fisherman in India. You already had a job. You made money. You're done. You're in India.
Please tell your wife that in order for us to have these 2 hours, we have to wake up at 5. We have 3 hours before our work.
Okay. It's not a mussar to you. It's a mussar to me that I go for so long. My wife says, what are you talking for so long? People have a life outside of your class. They have a life. Recognize that. But I hear you. Nobody's forced to sit there. Okay, Baruch Hashem. I don't want to fall asleep in the middle of the action. Why am I talking about the length of the shia? Even a person, you could sit taka 10 hours in Gan Eden. It still doesn't answer the question. The shear of the soul before coming down, with all due respect to Rabbi Y, was better. In fact, it didn't have to have a shear. It was there. You don't have to talk about embodiment and embodiment and nervous system and get it into your system and feel it. It didn't have all these issues.
It was less humorous, though.
That's true. That's true. That's true. That's true. Very good. It was less humorous. In fact, in one of the Maamarim, the Alter Rebbe says that the first Jew born as a Jew is called Yitzchak, because what happens down here is the chiddush of humor, laughter. Very good. That's good. Torah Parshas told us. Parshas Chayesara told us. Both. Yeah, Yitzchak. Everything is about Yitzchak, the laughter. Because humor always comes from contrast. Right? When something is in flow, it's beautiful, but it's not humorous. You know, you look at the river flowing, it's a beautiful experience, but it's not humorous. Right? When you look at the salmon fighting the flow, you're like, wow. It opens something new. Why? You're fighting the flow. Like, that's the chiddush. Every good joke is basically going against the flow, right? People are expecting a punchline, and you're like, boom, a curveball. What is that? It's not the flow. You said that beautifully. Humor is created by the interruption of flow when you know how to exploit the interruption and deviate from it and yet use it as a source of a new awareness. Because you can also not use it and just get out of flow, and then it's just, The joke plots as it flops. You understand? Going out of flow is dangerous. If you know how to take the curveball and manipulate it and use it for your advantage. Like the real athletes, they can take a curveball and then they use it against you. Verstehst? So that's really what happens. The soul learns how to take the darkness of the world. This darkness. Dark humor, very good. Very good. Take darkness and turn it into humor. It takes the darkness of the world and shows and transforms it and reveals something in it which it could never have had before. It had everything before. We know it had everything. Gewaltig, it was amazing. And that can't be from the framework of Mamalik Al-Alman. And that's why Kabbalah, as far and amazing as it was, outside of Nigla, deeper, 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 ultimately it remains infatuated by Ruchnius. But the real redemptive quality of Teres Baal Shem Tov is that the places where you're confronting your darkness are not just oh so valuable and there's some form of being tested, but that really is where the only uniqueness that makes all of life worth it happens. So it redeems that entire aspect of life that we're all dealing with. Of course you could sit at let's say you could sit at a shir for 15 hours a day and be in Gan Eden. That's not where it's happening, with all due respect to the shir. You need it, we need the psyche education, you need the hachana, you need the hechsher, you need the foundation, of course. But the way it's really, really happening is in those moments where I'm confronting that which completely eclipses everything that I know and deep down to be true. Now the question is why? Like, you just made a beautiful theory, fine, nice. It's like almost looks like a cliche, so now we'll redeem the darkness and everything is good. But this is anything but a cliche. This is the DNA of the secret of existence. This is it. So that's the whole Hemshech HaMaimer here.
That's why it used to be that the rule was not for the masses. Today, supposedly.
No, Kabbalah is Pnimiyus HaTorah, but it's revealing a certain frequency of Elokus, which is incredible. I'm talking about it. We're talking about diary. I'm talking about real Kabbalah. Not just a few babas, selling kameis.
Right, but obviously it was much more considered much more sacred.
Yeah, it's very, very. It's transcendent. It's pure transcendence. Really, Kabbalah came to pop the bubble, to burst the bubble on the Helam, on the Chayshach of the world. Like, if you study Kisvei Harizal, Bechal Kabbalah, like, there's a system, there's everything is part of a bigger picture, and even in people, right? The Arizal would look at somebody, right, and he would say, there was a Gilgul of this one. In other words, it's the idea that there's a soul in everything. That's Kabbalah. There's a soul in everything. And that soul also has a soul. So the soul of one level relative to a higher level is a body. What is a soul in this world becomes a body in a higher world. And what is its soul is a body in the higher world. Like we said, Ilah v'Alol, right? The Alol of a higher world becomes the Ilah of this world. So the Ilah of this world, which is a soul, in the higher world it's only a guf. And its soul is that Ilah. But then that goes to a higher world, that becomes a guf. And that's really much of Kabbalah, and it's very exciting. It's extremely exciting. And those who internalize Kabbalah, the real Mekabalim lived there. They lived in higher frequencies. They really did. And it's something that was forgotten from so much of Jewry because of whatever reason. So there's a huge thirst to bring it back. But there's a very, very critical component, and that is, where does all the darkness come in? So yes, if you can cultivate expansive consciousness, got it. But the real healing is when everything comes together. Everything. Real fusion, real integration. All the pieces are part of it. And that's you right away know it's a different frequency. It's a much deeper frequency. You have to go to a place that's deeper than light if you want to redeem the darkness. You heard what I just said? You have to go to a place that's deeper than light in order to redeem the darkness. If I stay in light, it's amazing. Stay there as much as you can. But that can't redeem the darkness. Because light is light and darkness is the opposite of light. You must go higher than light to redeem the darkness. Huh? Yeah, it's a place that's higher than the frequency of light. Which in the language of the Alter Rebbe is, Mamala Kalalman is the light. But that very light is concealed. And that's what makes it effective. If there wouldn't be concealed, there wouldn't be light. Light has to be, light is about effectiveness. If light is not effective, the point of light is effectivity. I don't know if I just made up a word. The point of light is functionality. It's utilitarian. I should be able to see things. That's what light is. Right? Mamala kalalma, nitfas. Communicate, exactly. If you're communicating and nobody understands what you're saying, so just keep it to yourself. The point of communicatia, tiksharet in Hebrew, communication is communication. Community, the word community means you want to create community, which is communication, which means connection. And for that, you need to connect. And if you're not connecting, so stop communicating. Right? Just be quiet and keep it for yourself. Communication is mamala kalam, and that's effective communication.
So what's beyond communication is actually ability to discover true self. Is that what she's
Yeah.
alluding to? So because in self.
So Kabbalah focuses on mamala. Alter Rebbe here also focuses, but as he finishes Siv Bais, he says, all this is mamala kalam. And he's going to do aval, but there's going to be a but. There's always a but, aval, but. And because of that deeper reality, so to speak, if we could use that word, because even the word deeper reality is a mamala kalalman term, so that's why I don't like that word here, but what's the best I can come up with at the moment? Because you're not going to be dealing with a deeper reality. We're going to be dealing with ultimate reality, right? Which also is not a good word, but whatever, you got the problem here. Because of that, you can also go to a new step, and that is the redemption of darkness. The idea that in the physicality, in the lack of dveikus, the neshama finds something that it couldn't find. So when you ask somebody, what's the purpose of Yiddishkeit? So usually the more spiritually oriented will say dveikus. And we always say that. Dveikus, connection, connection, attachment. And it's true, but there's a big question. Because there was much better dveikus before. We were attached. It's not like if we weren't attached, the purpose is attachment. We were attached. And we were attached, perfectly attached. Couldn't be more attached. And there's nothing better than that attachment. You can't give me anything. No chocolate in the world, even Swiss Schmerling chocolate without sugar, won't cut it. So what exactly is this new attachment? You had all the attachment in the world. That was the neshama before. So what we're going to learn in the Maamar is, no, actually the purpose is not dveikus. The moments when you don't have dveikus are as purposeful as the moments you have dveikus. Of course, dveikus gives it the luster and the beauty and the geschmack. And one must have dveikus, and that's what the whole davening is. But if that's the beginning and the end of it, it was much, much better before. Because even if you have dveikus here, it's going to be interrupted. It's going to be filled with struggle. It's never going to be as powerful and as clear. As he said, it'll be more humorous and funny. But that's exactly the point. It's humorous because it's new, because it's weird. Funny things are weird. Not things that are not weird are not funny. It's weird. Dveikus is weird, yeah. So we're going to learn the purpose is not dveikus. Yeah.
Dveikus is like light. Light is limited.
Yeah.
Light is a creation.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
designed for purpose.
Right.
But
Yeah.
not the source of dveikus.
Right. Dveikus is like light.
Kabbalah, to answer this question,
That's usually Nama de Chisufa, yeah. Ramchal, yeah. Already before the Ramchal, the Arizal. No. Nama de Chisufa. It's not wrong. Huh? Yeah. Nabed Chsuf is a beautiful answer in Mamala Kalalman. It's a geschmack answer. When you own something, when you earn it, it's much better. I'm not just attached because you made me attached. You actually sent me away. And I forced my way back in, so to speak, in a good way. I own it.
So that answers the question. The question is not fair.
You own the attachment. Right, but
Then you were created attached. You were
But ultimately, you can ask a deeper question, right? This idea that if I don't own it, it's not full attachment, was taught to me. Right? When the neshama is in that space of attachment, it's not missing anything. It's not like the neshama is feeling horrible before it's born. It's like, I'm like Maamar Schnuer from the Kaisel. I don't own anything, and like I'm this mamish, this homeless beggar, and like that's what the neshama feels.
why that's why it says Kabbalah, because Hashem
Hagufa Hashem gave it. This feeling of Namad Chesuf is part of what God did.
why? Because Hashem wants this
So
to
the-
be a separate entity that's double.
But Hagufa, the neshama could have stayed there with full simcha and full hana.
With self-consciousness?
Yes.
Or he would have been part of Hashem's consciousness. Hashem wants to be a separate consciousness, a double to him. Not to be everything one.
So Hagufa.
Hashem wants
Right. So Hagufa, you need a deeper, you need to go into a deeper space.
and that's the case with Hamid Sif. Hashem made like the Neshama as a separate consciousness. And then the Neshama is receiving from Hashem. And it's like, you just made me and you're giving me, like, what's the relationship here? I'm embarrassed. So it's sent to the world, they should
Right.
earn it. It's like, that should be a real relationship.
Right.
Before this should answer the question.
It could have had the teva not to be embarrassed. This goof is a creation, right? We could have had a nature that you get everything. In fact, there's some people I know like that.
There's some schnuers that are not embarrassed, and some people that give the money who are embarrassed.
Yeah, they scream at you, they make you feel guilty. Do ganav, do gazlan, right? They say there was a guy in Borough Park, he was collecting money. So somebody walks by with a suitcase, dressed. No, it's tzedakah. Guy says, I don't have. So what do you don't have? I need tzedakah. He says, I don't have. He says, go work. I work hard, you work hard. They said there was a Meshulach, he called Rothschild at 4 a.m, emergency. So he wakes him up, what's the emergency? He says, I need tzedakah. He says, 4 a.m, you have to wake me up. He says, I don't tell you how to run your business. Don't tell me how to run my business. I do things 4 a.m. My point is, I don't mean to make all these jokes, my point is that Namad Chesuf itself is a nature that we understand today. We all understand it. But that itself is a bria.
The Bais in this, you could figure up any answer to this question.
You're right.
Hashem could have made it out.
You're right. And that's why with intellect, it's very limited. Because every Y needs another Y. And when you get to the first Y, it's like, Azoy. So you could have said that in the beginning. You're right. And even, by the way, in the world of science and physics and mathematics, there's a concept that Rambam calls muskalas rishonis. Muskalas rishonis means the paradigms of rationality that you have to accept by faith, so to speak.
That's why they call it a law. They're laws of nature.
Laws of nature. Like ultimately, if you're going to keep on asking why, all scholarship will cease. They're like, yeah, you could do that, but if you want to accept this as a paradigm, I could build on it. If not, okay. And it's not it's just the truth of life. And there's a reason for that, because seichel is a nivra. So if seichel is a nivra, which is a chiddush, in other words, there were those in the world of philosophy who didn't think seichel was a nivra. The Maharal accuses the Rambam of thinking that seichel is not a nivra. And he goes out at the Rambam. The Alter Rebbe came to the defense of the Rambam and said, no, the Rambam was just always talking post-Tzimtzum. That's it. You have to put the Rambam in context. You have to know who the Rambam was. The Maharal gets very upset at the Rambam because the Rambam calls Hashem Hu Amada, Hu Ayedeya, Hu Ayadua. The Maharal says, according to the Rambam, they should have called Hashem HaSeichel Baruch Hu, not HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what the Maharal writes in Gvuras Hashem. But the truth is that Seichel is a Nivra. There were those who thought Seichel is not a Nivra. Logic is not created. Logic is absolute. It's logic. 2 plus 2 equals 4 you have to create? Tell me how you don't create that. 2 plus 2 equals 4 pre-creation. Tissues you have to create. Mountains maybe you have to create, or for sure you have to create. But 2 plus 2 equals 4? A child is younger than a father? You have to create that? You know of a father who's older than a child? I mean, today's teenagers are older than their fathers, but biologically, let's put it chronologically. If the father was born Tavshin Pei, his son can't be born Tavshin Ayin Tes. Just doesn't work that way, right? If you're a child, you come after. If it's Pashut. How can you argue with that? So if you can't argue with that, you don't have to create it. So they said Seichel is an absolute. The Mekabalim and the Baalei Achsidus said it's not. Seichel is created. Huh? Right. 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 Okay, we'll take a break here. Be'ezer Hashem will continue. I did it. Thank you for listening. I just have to make a call. Give me a second.